Welcome to the PCOS lab. I'm Dr. Angela Potter. If you're tired of Band-Aid solutions and being told your labs are fine when you don't feel fine, you're in the right place. We use clinical engineering to move your body out of survival mode and into the biological safety required for motherhood. Let's get to work on your breakthrough. Today, I am really excited to share a conversation that I think will really resonate with you, particularly if you feel that you've been dismissed by the standard medical model. And my guest today is Lauren. And when Lauren first came to see me, she was trapped in a cycle of solving for X without knowing what Y was. She had gone off birth control only to find her cycles stretching to 60 days. And that led her to this state of constant fear-induced overwhelm. Can you relate to that? And when she asked her OBGYN for help, she was told that her only options were to piecemeal her care, seeing a different specialist for every symptom, or simply going back on the pill to just mask the problem. In this episode, Lauren dives into her journey of moving away from that Band-Aid approach and into a deep clinical dive that she did with me. And her and I are going to discuss how I helped her to regulate her cycles in just a few months. She's going to talk about the resilience that she built to navigate the heartbreak of her miscarriage, and then the incredible joy of her current twin pregnancy. So if you've ever felt like your body was out of whack just when you were ready to start a family, Lauren's story is the roadmap that you've been looking for. Let's dive in. Hi, Lauren. Thank you so much for joining me to share a bit of your story.
Thank you for having me.
So I would love to get started with, can you share what were you struggling with? What were you most frustrated about your health before you started working with me?
So I feel like it all happened very quickly. So I had been on birth control for a few years. Leading up to being on birth control, I wasn't super in tune with my cycle, but I do remember there being times when I would think like, it's been kind of a while since, I had my last period. That seems odd, but, if I wasn't seeing somebody or anything like that, it wasn't like I was concerned about pregnancy. So I just kind of like brushed it off for a long time. And then I did go on birth control and eventually decided, okay, now's the time to go off of it. And then at first, my cycles seemed to be normal enough. And then all of a sudden I was having like 45-day and then 19-day. And then I had a 60-day cycle, which was like what really freaked me out, that I was like, oh my gosh, like now I've just gotten married. I don't necessarily want to have get pregnant tomorrow, but like I need to be having a regular cycle so that I can one day get pregnant. And so I went to just like the regular OBGYN that I was seeing at the time. And I had like presented these concerns to her. And at first she wasn't super worried about it. She was like, well, we can do some like initial lab work and see, but could just be your body coming off of birth control. Originally, the lab work didn't seem to be too concerning. But then I continued to have issues with my cycle and they did additional lab work, and then they ordered an ultrasound, and then she came back to me and said, yes, you have PCOS. And meanwhile, while this is happening, of course, Instagram knows everything. So Instagram is saying like, oh, you probably have PCOS. And I'm getting all of this information fed to me about like things that you can do naturally and holistically to heal your cycle, or take this or take that. But I didn't really know what was happening yet. So I didn't want to start taking things without knowing what to do. And so when I finally got the diagnosis, I said to her, I was like, okay, so like, what can we do? What can we do to reverse some of these symptoms that I'm having and, get my body back to a better balance? And her response was very much like, well, I can't really do much for you. We can treat the symptoms. So if you want, like if you feel you're having issues with your skin, I can refer you to a dermatologist. If you want to lose weight, I can refer you to an endocrinologist. Want to get pregnant? If you struggle getting pregnant and you want to, then I can refer you to a fertility specialist. And it just kind of felt like she was like, I don't know, can't help you. Like you could go back on birth control if you want, and then you can have regular cycles, but that's not really a cycle. That didn't really sit right with me. And then I ended up getting connected with you. And I was like, okay, well, I think this is like worth a shot to have a doctor lead me through trying to do something natural and holistic before having to dive into IVF and things like that in the future if that was something that I was going to end up needing to do. So yeah, that was my biggest frustration, I think, is just feeling like, okay, now I'm at the time of my life where, I'm thinking about wanting to start a family in the relative near future. All of a sudden, my body seems very out of whack and I'm figuring it out. But the doctor that I'm going to basically doesn't want to figure it out for me. And meanwhile, I'm getting all of this external information in the world that's saying, no, there is a way to figure it out. So I just needed the right partner to help me figure out what the right thing to do was.
Yeah, I mean, to be working with that one doctor who was doing your diagnosis, I mean, that
Mhm.
must have been incredibly frustrating to hear, like, well, we can kind of like piecemeal things together. I'll send you to these different specialists depending on
Right.
what you're looking for. Yeah,
Yeah, it just felt
that's
very
gotta
much
be
like she
frustrating.
wanted to just, like, put, like, a Band-Aid on the situation. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, let's see what we can do, like, topically to erase whatever is happening, but it wasn't actually gonna heal from the inside out, like, what my body was missing.
Yeah, and I really loved what you said about how you were like, there was this disconnect of like, I was finally in this space of my life where I was ready to grow my family and have kids, but my body was just showing the complete opposite signs, like you were getting your irregular cycles. And I mean, how can you share more about how frustrating that was to be experiencing that in your body?
I think it was mostly very fear-inducing. I do like to feel like I'm in control. I think that the last 2 years have really shown me that, obviously there are so many things that you and I have done successfully to get my body to a place to be able to grow healthy babies. So it's not that you can't do anything, but sometimes, like, you're not always in control of your story, and, like, you just have to take it one day at a time and respond to what's happening around you. And, like, you can't control every single moment of the story. So I think it felt very much like, is this something that's going to be possible for me? And, like, what does this look like going on? And I think that until I had somebody that I was working with one on one, it felt even more scary because I was getting all of this feedback from the world, from social media, being like, there's something, yeah, here's the PCOS thing, and, like, everybody has a different idea, but none of it was focused on me and what my body actually needed. And so, I'd listen to podcasts and be like, oh, you should try this, or maybe what's wrong with you is this, maybe you have some sort of, like, bacteria that is keeping you from getting pregnant, or, like, you just hear all these different stories, and sometimes they're so specific that it's like, well, is that me? So I think it's so much more helpful to get somebody who can be actually specific with you rather than just fielding all of this information from out in the world, because I think until you have more information actually about yourself, it can be scary to just be thinking about, like, well, I don't know, worst case scenario, or, okay, if this doesn't work, then what do we do? And kind of, like, I can tend to put the cart before the horse a little bit. So I feel like I was, like, solving for X without even knowing what Y was.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's maybe my answer.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've talked about timeline a little bit, but can you share like what was that time of like how many months or years was it that you were seeing irregular cycles and then working to get the diagnosis before finding me and working with me?
It's kind of interesting because in the moment it felt like a long time. But when I look back, it's like it wasn't really that long. Because I think I mentioned, like, I think I have always had semi-irregular cycles, because I remember
Mhm.
there being times, like, in high school, in college, and in my early 20s where I was just like, like, it is so weird that feels like it's been, like, longer than a month. But I was never that concerned because I don't think I knew to be concerned. Like, I think that
Mm.
now, being pregnant with girls, I know so much more about the female body and, like, why having a regular cycle is so important, that I would want to teach them when the time is right. That it's like, it's not just about, like, knowing what day you're ovulating, but it's about knowing that your body is functioning the way that it should. It's like the fifth vital sign, or
Mhm.
whatever, is it fifth?
Yes, yeah.
The fifth vital sign for women. It's very important beyond just fertility. It's just for your general health from day to day, month to month, year to year. So I just don't think I didn't know at the time that that was potentially something that I would need to be worried about, because I don't know, when you're really young, you're like, oh, good, another week I don't have to worry about, having all my like period products and like making sure, that I'm dealing with that. So I think that there was always like a little bit of an issue that I wasn't just tracking super closely. And then I think going on the pill made things worse. And in the time when I was on the pill, while I was on it, I didn't notice anything negative because, you're taking this pharmaceutical. And so I think from the time when I went off of it to things getting really weird was like 2 or 3 months, like 2 or 3 cycles where I was like, oh, no, now this is really odd that like having 45-day and then 19-day. I had a lot of external stressors happening at the time too, with work and planning a wedding and things like that. I was like, it's like, oh, well, maybe it's stress related.
Right.
But it seemed to just be getting worse and worse and worse when it led up to this like 60-day cycle. That was very concerning to me. So I think all in all, from the time when I went off the pill to when you and I started to work together was probably about 6 months. So it took probably 3 or 4 months to get a PCOS diagnosis, which I would say like is a positive in terms of the practice that I was going to at the time, that like we did work rather quickly. And one thing that was challenging with my longer cycles was, you want to do these labs on day 3 of your cycle. Well, here I am, 45, 50, 55 days into a cycle, just waiting until my period finally comes again, and then I can go and get these additional labs done.
Right.
So that process was pretty quick. And then I got connected with you, and I think you and I spoke and we kind of identified a good date for me to start working with you based off of what your program had looked like for me to start. And so I think that was like 2 months after you and I had initially met and had like our first like exploration meeting to when you and I actually started working together. And then from the time that we started working together, because I was tracking my cycle with Natural Cycles, it's really easy to look back at the data. I mean, we went to from 40. I was kind of like, by the time you and I started working together, I think that I was sitting around 45-day cycles. And then pretty quickly I moved into 37, and then I had maybe 2 or 3 months of 37-day cycles, and then, or 2 or 3, cycles at 37 days.
Yeah.
And then after that, I like dropped really quickly into 30, 29, 28, and kind of like settling around that amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you had mentioned earlier about how at the time it felt so long, right? Like those months, just felt really long. But now when you're able to reflect back, it was like, okay, well, 2 months where I was at 37 days. And then after that, I dropped down to 29 days. And when you look back on that, how actually that all happened, like rather quickly for when we're talking about the menstrual cycle, that's a whole month long process. Yeah. Then when you and I, when you and I did start working together, what else changed for you in that time? You mentioned that you saw your cycle length decrease, but what else opened up for you and what was changing for you?
I think that was, just the relaxation into the knowledge and in getting the data back that my body was getting back to a more, I don't know if normal is the right word, but balanced state and like where it should be for peak fertility. So being able to see positive LH strips mid-cycle and seeing temperature rises around ovulation and then having my period actually come was all just very relieving because because it's I'm really not that old. I'm 31, but at the time it's like, oh, okay, this is the time where everybody says like, you really got like, just like the next 10 years. And then you think about how many cycles is over 10 years. And it's like, it's really not that many cycles, your chances to get pregnant. And this is where I am the cart before the horse a little bit, where I'm thinking so far ahead that it's like, oh my gosh, like we have to figure this out because after all, like I'm 30 and like there's only like 10 more years to do this. And I didn't necessarily want to wait a super long time. And so just having some comfort and seeing that the change was helpful for, my physical state. It was helpful for my emotional state, and just being and being more in tune with PMS symptoms and why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing I'm curious about is you were mentioning how that other doctor, the one who diagnosed you, was saying, I'll get you a dermatologist or an endocrinologist, depending on your symptoms. How then did it feel to work with me, who, it's just me that you're working with, who was guiding you on all of the different aspects of PCOS? How did that feel moving through a program that approached your body in all these different ways?
I think it was really great because I felt like with the labs that we had done, everything that I was taking was very purposeful. So versus, my skin was never too horrible, thankfully. But let's say I had just gone to a dermatologist because I felt like I was having skin issues. I don't know that they would have looked into my hormones and figured out, okay, well, where are you imbalanced so that we can help you with these skin issues? I feel like they probably would have just given me some sort of topical cream and sent me on my way and been like, okay, take this. Let's see how that works. So I don't think it would have actually been healing anything inside of me. It would just be treating the symptoms that we were seeing on the outside. So I appreciated that. Yeah, all the supplements that we had done, even starting with the detox and trying to figure out, do you have any allergies that are potentially impacting you on a day-to-day basis and things like that, that you live in a certain state for so long that you don't necessarily even realize, you don't feel at your best type thing. I think it felt very focused, and so I appreciated that it wasn't just like if I had just been doing it on my own and listening to whoever random influencer on social media who said to take whatever thing, maybe it would have worked, but maybe it wouldn't have, because it wasn't tailored to my actual needs. It was just whatever somebody out in the world was selling. So I felt like, with the labs that we had done and the focus time that we had together, meeting and talking about how I was feeling and how things were progressing, made it effective so that within a very short period of time, my cycles regulated quite quickly.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So, going through the program and since we started working together, what else has opened up for you and how are you feeling now?
Well, so it's been an interesting year, I guess, since over the past year has been interesting. So last February I became pregnant, and then we were so excited and I felt so great that all this work that we had done together had been successful. And then that pregnancy unfortunately ended in a miscarriage. And I wanted to bring that up in this scenario just because I want other women to know that it's not always a straight line. And so, I felt good that we had gotten my body to a place where a pregnancy could happen. And then I came back to you and we did some additional labs after that. And we retailored my supplement protocol and everything that I was doing based on what my body was now saying that we needed. And I think my biggest concern at that time had been, am I going to have to start from scratch? Are my cycles going to come back? We had been doing so well. I had gotten to this place of 28, 29 day cycles. Is that going to happen again? Or am I going to be led into, because they say after miscarriage, it can take time for your cycle to come back and all these things. So after also going through grief, but my biggest concern was, how is my body going to handle this moving forward so that we can try again and hopefully, continue to grow our family at some point. The work that you and I had done together, I think, continued to prove its worth and value, and readdressing, what my hormone panel was now saying that I needed. There were things that I started taking and there were things that I then took out of my supplement protocol that I didn't need anymore. And my cycles did re-regulate incredibly quickly. I think I was back to a around a 30-day cycle almost immediately. And during that time, I had moved, so I was finding a new OBGYN, and I ended up, kind of going back into it's hard to find an OBGYN who is really going to support you. So I had originally, there was a doctor in the area who was highly recommended, who I was going to go to. I had an appointment with her when I first got pregnant. I made it right away, and they were like, okay, great. We'll see you at 9 or 10 weeks. And I was like, oh, 9 or 10 weeks. That seems crazy. But unfortunately, the pregnancy ended before that time even came. So they asked me to retain that appointment. And so I went because I needed care, somebody in my area that's local who I can go to the next time I get pregnant. And also, just for general OBGYN care. And she was not accepting of any sort of holistic protocol, anything that I was doing. She took one look at me and was like, well, you're telling me that your cycles are regular. And I was like, yeah, but my cycles are now regular because I've been working with Dr. Potter and we have all these supplements that I've been taking. And I want to know from you, what can we, if there's anything you want to look at in my body to make sure that my body will be able to handle pregnancy moving forward. This is a very hard experience, did not go well. And I walked away from it being like, that's just not a woman I can take a future pregnancy to. And I'm glad that I know that now. And I did some additional research on other OBGYNs in my area, and that's when I landed at the practice that I'm at now. And what I liked about them is they have a naturopath on staff that they work with. I haven't met with her, but they have a relationship with somebody who's a naturopath. And I was like, okay, that's interesting to me, because to me, that says that you're a practice that is open to this kind of approach. And so I made just a general appointment with them. And it just so happened that that was on day 3 of my cycle, and met with an RN there. And I brought in the supplement protocol that you had me on, and I presented it to her. And I said, I've been working with this doctor out in Oregon. This has been my experience with PCOS. I had this miscarriage. And now, I'm curious to know what is happening in my body. Is there a red flag that we could do some additional labs on that for some reason, I could potentially be looking at having recurrent miscarriages in the future? Or what here? Is there anything that you can tell me? And she was so receptive she pulled out a whole sheet, and she was like, let's run all of these things. She was like, I totally understand. Typically after a single miscarriage, they don't want to look into it too deeply because they're so common. And there's the part of you that understands that when this has happened to you. And then there's the part of you that's like, but if there's something wrong, I would rather you catch it now than me having to go through this again and again and again. Because there's every chance that this is just something that happens because sometimes it just happens. And then there's every chance that it could be a recurrent miscarriage. You could be leading into, it could be for a specific reason that is happening within your body that does need to be addressed and can be addressed. And then you won't have this issue in the future. So I was like, can we even just look into it a little bit? The original doctor I spoke to was like, no, you're fine. Not worried. Next time I see you, it'll be for an ultrasound. And I was like, wow. Okay, great. But this new practice, she was like, let's run all these labs. She looked over the supplement that you had given me, and she was like, I completely understand why she has given you every single thing on this list. All of these things are researched and reviewed. And she was like, if it's working for you, then you should keep doing it. And if you're seeing consistent cycles, that's my medical opinion. So thankfully, the feedback that I got from the additional labs that I did all looked really good. There wasn't any major red flags. And she just said, continue your supplement protocol and call us, when you get pregnant again, and we'll get you in right away so that you have early care. So 3 or 4 months passed, and I took a pregnancy test. It was positive. Called the doctor's office, went in, and that's when she was like, there's more than one baby in here. So we found out at 6 weeks pregnant, very, very early, that we were having twins. And I was just so thankful to feel like even though you guys aren't working together, to feel like I was at a practice that was so receptive to your point of view and the things that you had done for me that were so positive, to then work with them to continue with my pregnancy care.
Yeah. Oh, wow. We're in.
It's a whirlwind. It's been a wild year since last, like, February, March.
Yeah, yeah. It's been really a year. And to think all of that you've gone through in this year. Wow. And so for where you are now, you're having a healthy pregnancy,
Mhm.
and thinking about this journey that you've been on and where you are right now, what are you grateful for?
I am so grateful to have a body that has been able to handle a twin pregnancy as well as it has. Even though I'm young, automatically as a twin pregnancy, you get marked high risk. So there's
Mhm.
additional monitoring, which is good because, there's two babies, so they need all the support that they can get. And, they want to especially make sure that, your body is handling it well.
Mhm.
So I think I'm so grateful that they have been growing in very healthy rates. I'm very obviously all twin pregnancies are great. I'm very thankful to have a di twin pregnancy, which means that they both have their own gestational sacs and they both have their own placentas. So they don't have any possible concerns about twin to twin transfusion, which is when one twin can possibly be getting more nutrients than the other.
Mhm.
So that I'm very grateful for. So yeah, I'm very grateful that I've been able, it puts you in a little bit of a state of on edge when you've already had a miscarriage before. And now it's like, oh
Mhm.
gosh, it's twins, which is potentially a more challenging pregnancy. But I was so grateful to make it to 12 weeks. I was so grateful to make it to viability. I'm so grateful to now be in the third trimester and looking at like 10 weeks out from delivery. So I'm just so thankful that they've been growing and healthy and that I have been healthy and I haven't been put on bed rest or anything like that. And yeah, I've been able to work and do the things that I need to do. Yeah. So I'm so grateful that we'll be able to grow our family in this way.
Wow, I've got goosebumps just listening to that. And it's just been incredible to watch this journey that you've been on. And I'm just so happy for you and your family.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited. We're the first grandkids, so it's
Oh
big.
my
Yeah.
gosh, that is big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow, for both sides?
Yes, yeah, unless you count dogs, but it's not quite the same.
Wow, Lauren, that's so exciting. Well, do you have any like final thoughts that you want to share to someone who is perhaps in a similar place that you were? What was it, a year and a half
Mhm.
ish ago when you didn't know why you were having irregular cycles and what your body was doing. You really wanted to be pregnant. What would you say to someone who's in that same place?
I would say that there's 100% hope and to try to be patient in the moment because it will go by really quickly. I hope for them that if with the right support, I think that you can see pretty dramatic changes. Yeah, and a move towards a more positive and healthy baseline for your body. Because obviously I wanted to have children and I want to have children. But it's so important to support your body and to support your hormones. So even if you end up having to look at growing your family in another way, working with somebody one on one who can get down to the root of what's happening to you will look like long-term health overall, no matter how many kids you have or how you bring them into your family. So I think that's something that we all want and desire. So yeah, I would just say to be patient and to find somebody who can really help you and is going to listen to you and is going to continue to dive into why you're seeing the symptoms that you're seeing because they're not existing for no reason. And so if they're there, there's probably something that you can do about it.
Lauren, I love that. That's just really beautiful, a nice way to just tie it up and give that to somebody. And your whole story will be just a light at the end of the tunnel for many, many other women. So thank you for being here to share your story, the pain, the heartache, and this joy that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I am so grateful to Lauren for being vulnerable about her journey, especially her reminder that fertility isn't always a straight line. And what I'm hoping you can take away from Lauren's story is that her twin pregnancy, it wasn't just luck. It was the result of the groundwork she laid. Even when she went through a miscarriage, her body had the biological safety and the nutrient stores to re-regulate almost immediately. And because she knew her cycle, she was empowered to stop seeing a doctor who didn't listen and find a medical team that respected her own physiological data. And Lauren mentioned, did you catch this, that her symptoms weren't existing for no reason? And she's exactly right. Your symptoms, they are a language. And if you're ready to stop guessing and start listening to what your body needs to feel safe enough to conceive, I invite you to book a fertility audit with me. That's the same place that Lauren started with. And I am going to look at your why so we can finally solve for X. You can find the link to book that call in the show notes. I'm Dr. Angela Potter, and thanks for joining me today in the lab. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If today's episode resonated with you, it's likely because you're tired of guessing and ready for a blueprint. Remember, your body isn't failing you, it's just waiting for the right signals. My mission is to help you send those signals through clinical engineering so you can move from survival to safety and finally to motherhood. To start sending those signals today, head over to drangelapotter.com/start. There you can take the Why Am I Not Ovulating discovery quiz. In just 2 minutes, you'll identify which metabolic alarms are keeping your fertility emergency brakes on. And if you're ready to stop researching and start your breakthrough, you can also book your PCOS fertility audit on that same page. This is a private 30-minute clinical deep dive with me to determine if the blueprint is the right roadmap for your fertility journey. I'm Dr. Angela Potter. Your body is capable, your health is manageable, and your future is waiting. I'll see you in the next episode.